man, many of those times you wonder yourself, at least I wonder to myself, like, is it possible for me? Do I have what it takes? Because you hear or you see all these success stories of everybody else and you think, well, I know it's possible for them. I just heard their story, but I don't know if it's ever going to be possible for me.
Welcome to the Workforce Link podcast, where we're offering forward-thinking conversations for the workforce, linking employers and job seekers to a brighter tomorrow. I'm your host, Sundi Jo with the Central Workforce Development Region, and I am glad to be back with you for another episode today. You were put here with a mission: to be the one who lives a life and writes an unforgettable story for your family tree, which enables future generations to look up and say, he's the one who altered the pattern of abuse. She's the one who overcame the addiction, who ended our financial struggles, who snapped generational chains. He's the one who sets the example. She's the one who inspires us. Those are powerful words. I wish that I would have written them myself, but I didn't. I can't take credit for that. Today's guest, Justin Prince, wrote those words, and I can't wait to dive deeper today into this topic on how to create, design, and live an unforgettable life. In this episode of the Workforce Link podcast with Justin, we're going to learn how setbacks can launch us into success, how to clarify our vision for the future, how to keep going when things get hard, and more. Justin Prince is a global entrepreneur who's built 5 multi-million-dollar businesses. 5, saying that one more time, multi-million-dollar businesses that have generated more than $2 billion in revenue. He's an acclaimed keynote speaker who's shared stages around the world with icons such as John Maxwell, who's profound in the leadership world, and he is a heart-centered husband and a proud father of 4. Yet he was raised in a broken home, has no college education, and began his professional career working construction, flipping pizzas, and selling animated Bible videos from a mall kiosk. You guys remember those days, the mall kiosk? In fact, his very first business venture left him below zero financially, and his first sliver of success came while raising his kids in a one-room loft above his in-laws' garage. Justin's unexpected rise, proven personal development strategies, and tailored success systems have moved and motivated millions of people to create, design, and live an unforgettable life. In his book, Be the One, Justin shares the precise tools, habits, and action steps to help any reader do the same. With a focus on practical and actionable advice, this book serves as an easy-to-follow instruction manual for anyone, as Justin puts it, to be the one. And we are going to dive deeper into Justin's roadmap from Be the One today. And I am so excited to dive into this episode with you. Before we do that, though, I'd love to ask a favor. Make sure you share this episode with others. The more you share, the more people that we get to help. And we appreciate that in advance. Now, let's get to today's episode on how to create, design, and live an unforgettable life with our special guest, Justin Prince. Justin, thanks for being on the podcast today. We really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to hang out with us and talk with us today.
Listen, anyone that's got guitars in the background, I'm all in. So yeah. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, that guitar was actually given to me several years ago by a mentor and my old worship pastor. And so I've got to do a lot of cool things with it. And then it broke. And I thought, well, I can't just store it away. It has too much meaning. So now I just get to look at it every day.
Love it. Smart woman.
Well, Justin, you've got one amazing story. So first of all, you got a new book out called Be the One.
Yeah.
Which love the title already. I'm already hooked on the title. And I can't wait to just hear more about your story and how you can just inspire us to keep moving forward. And so can you just, as we get started, can you share just a little bit about your personal journey from facing challenges in your youth to building a 5 multi-million-dollar businesses today?
Yeah, so I'm from basically a middle-class family and from a place called Sandy, Utah. So when my mom married my dad, he had 2 kids, my older sister, older brother. And then I was my mom's oldest. And so they got divorced when I was 12. So I was the oldest at home with my mom. And so we moved 13 times in the next 7 years through the teenage years. And so you're kind of bouncing around both between your dad's house, your mom's house, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I had really no professional background. I was making pizzas. I was doing construction work. I worked at a mall kiosk selling animated Bible videos, at the mall. I have no college education. I had a semester and a half of college. And so what I did have, and I hope your listeners have, you have dreams and you have goals and you want to like do something with your life and you want your life to matter and you want to hopefully live a life that, impacts people in a positive way. Maybe future generations know who you were, So I kind of had some of those goals, but I just didn't have kind of the pedigree to say that those are all going to happen. And so I was introduced to my first business at 25. I got enough courage to go and to go for it. I went all in, just gave it all I had, and kind of burned through whatever savings I had. And I just went for it. Long story short, the company we were distributing their products for, the company itself went out of business. And so when that happened, our business was toast. And so I was below zero financially. I was back on credit cards. I was back on taxes. At one point, I moved my pregnant wife and now 2 kids into the loft of my wife's parents' garage. So I had 2 kids sleeping in the closet. My wife and I are sleeping in this little loft area. I picked up 2 part-time jobs. I started another business to see if I could, finally figure out the entrepreneur thing. And so here I am, I'm 27 years old. I'm a grown man and I live in the United States of America with 2 kids sleeping in the closet. And I'm living in this little loft area with 2 part-time jobs and, trying to pursue the dream to be free. And man, many of those times you wonder yourself, at least I wondered to myself, like, is it possible for me? Do I have what it takes? Because you hear or you see all these success stories of everybody else and you think, well, I know it's possible for them. I just heard their story, but I don't know if it's ever going to be possible for me. And I had those same kind of questions and concerns and doubts. Long story short, I eventually was able to get rid of the 1 part-time job and, earned enough to get rid of the second part-time job. And I was kind of full-time in my business. I ended up selling that business when I was 29. I did private equity consulting for the next 2 years. And then 11 years ago, I helped take over a company that was 25 years in business, but it was 8 years in a row of double-digit declines. It was kind of going the wrong direction fast. And so we came in as part of a consulting team originally and started a turnaround project. And what happened is the turnaround project turned into a startup / turnaround. So it was like changing the engine of a 737 while you're at 30,000 feet. I became a minority partner in the business, but my role was really in the field, building leadership teams, building sales teams. And we went out and launched that business. And in the next 10 years, we did, $2.5 billion in revenue and millions of customers. And that turned into a really, really positive experience, paid out over $1 billion in commissions to the folks that were selling our products.
Wow.
And
that's incredible.
That was a really great experience. So that kind of led to, more and more of the speaking and more of the coaching. People are like, hey, walk me through this. And I think where the book came from for me, there was really 2 things.
Hey, just want to interrupt for a quick second to tell you about something really amazing that's happening in the central region of Missouri right now. Are you a business owner or manager who needs assistance increasing your profit margin and building a stronger workforce? Now is the time to take advantage of our employer services. The Central Region Missouri Job Centers are ready to help you today. Available at no cost to you, we offer a variety of employer services, including job matching, consulting, work opportunity tax credits, on-the-job training, incumbent worker training, transition assistance, and more. You can get all the details at cwdregion.com/employer services, and I will share the link for you in the show notes. We look forward to assisting you with all your employer needs today. Now, let's get back to today's episode.
First thing is that success is an identity process. And you're never going to outperform the way you see yourself. If you see yourself as a loser, you're not going to show up and play the game like a winner. If you see yourself as a winner, you're not going to roll over and quit like a loser. And so one of the things that I like to remind people is that you're the one. You're the one. If you were to take your parents and your grandparents and your great-grandparents and your great-great-grandparents, if you were to go back 12 generations, it was 4,094 people. The ancestral math is 4,094 people from all over the world came together to create you. And you are the one that these folks lived for and bled for and cried for and died for and gave everything they had for, is for you to have this moment, for you to be the one. So the first concept is you're the one. The second concept is to be. So in other words, not to become, you already are the one, but to be means I wanted to take all of the practical, tactical, frameworks and formulas and all of this stuff that I've learned over this, billions of dollars in business and say, how the heck did I get here? And put it into practical steps for someone to read and say, all right, this is what I need to do today to be the one that creates and designs and lives an unforgettable life where future generations look up into that family lineage and they say, it was him or it was her. She's the one, she's the one for our family. And so
Right.
that's where the concept of the book came from. And it's been extremely well received. It's been, really cool to watch it kind of launch. And I feel like we have a message that really resonates with people at a deep level.
Absolutely, you do. And what a timely message for it. You said something I want to go back to. You were asking yourself, do I have what it takes to be successful? And then I love that you brought up the identity issue. Why do you think we get into that rut of, I don't have what it takes to be successful, or they can do it, but I'm just not good enough to do it?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's obviously a lot of different ways that we're programmed, right? We have, I think our environment can lead to this, the way we were raised, the environment we live in now, the people we've surrounded ourselves with, and what they've said to us. But one of the things that I teach in the book is this concept of updating your identity. So in other words, I tell people, you're not who you are who you were born to be. So in other words, think about it this way. Have you ever looked at a picture, when you were like a 7-year-old, it's like you and your brother and sister, whatever, you're 7 years old. And you're like, oh, cute, and yes, you were 7 in that picture. That's who you are. I get it. But that wasn't really who you are. That's because you're who you were born to be. So you look at you when you're 17 or when you're 27 and you're like, oh, I remember that time. But again, what you are is this potential of the person that you were born to be.
Right.
And so you want to constantly be updating that identity of who you really are. I think for a lot of us, oftentimes we can own our mistakes. We can own our past a little bit, the struggles we've been through. And I tell people, you're not what you did, but you are what you repeatedly do. And so we all make mistakes. We all, aren't our best self, but you're constantly updating that identity. I'll give you a quick example. I worked with a friend of mine years ago named Jaime Molina. So Jaime and his wife Ramona live in Southern California. Jaime, the simplest way I can describe him, he's one of the sweetest men I've ever met. He's a powerful guy, but he's sweet as they come. He has 4 beautiful daughters, really devout in his Catholic faith, runs a financial services business. He's from originally Texas, El Paso. So he's from right on the border of US and Mexico. He's the kind of person you'd want your daughter to marry or your sister to marry. He's just a good man, And Jaime tells a story when he works with the troubled youth in his community. He tries to give back by helping the troubled youth. He tells a story about a man named E9400. E9400 was a young boy that was introduced to alcohol at age 8. At age 9, he was sexually molested by someone 23 years older than him and became sexually active as a little 9-year-old boy. 14, he was on hard drugs. At 15, he became a mule for the cartels. At 22, he was sentenced to serve multiple years in San Quentin, one of the worst, jails in America.
Yeah.
And he says to the kids, what do you guys think happened to E9400? Like, in other words, where do you think he is today? Do you think he's living his best life? Do you think he's homeless? Do you think he's on drugs? Do you think he works in the cartels? Do you think he's dead? Do you think he's an alcoholic? What do you think? And if you hear that pedigree, you might think to yourself, yikes, I don't like the odds for this story,
Mm-hmm.
One day he walks into class and he goes, I have a special guest for you today. And they said, who's that? He said, remember I told you guys the story about E9400? And the kids are like, yeah, the guy that at age 8 was, on alcohol, at 9 was sexually molested, became sexually active, at 14 was on hard drugs, 15 was a mule, served multiple years in San Quentin. He goes, yeah, they're like, I remember that. He goes, let me go grab him. So he walks out in the hall. So Jaime walks in and the door shuts behind him, but it's just Jaime. He walks to the front of the room and he says, I am E9400.
Whew, that gives me goosebumps, man.
Yeah, E9400 was his prison identification when he was in San Quentin. That was his ID. That's who he was. So for many years of Jaime's life, he was known not as Jaime Molina. He was known as E9400. But remember, my friends, you are not who you are. You are who you were born to be. He wasn't born to be E9400. He was born to be Jaime. The devout husband to Ramona and the father to these 4 beautiful girls and the man that runs a financial services business and the man that's devout in his Catholic faith. That's who Jaime was born to be. And you are not what you did.
Yes.
You are what you repeatedly do.
Yeah.
Like, you can shift and update your identity. And one of the ways I like to look at it, Sundi, is I like to say it this way: create your future with your future, not your past. So you start to create your future with your future, not your past. So think of it this way. When you cast out a vision for your life, or you cast out a vision for the goals and the dreams and things you'd like to accomplish. So in other words, your future, start creating that future vision with your future. In other words, the future vision of who you are born to be versus the person that you've been in the past. You know, all the mistakes, all the fears, all the anxieties, all the stresses, all the doubts. I was just at a church youth camp, basically, like last weekend. I was speaking to these youth. So these are kids from probably about 13 to 18, roughly, right? It was boys and girls. And by the way, as you're listening, just do this in your mind real quick with me, just as a quick exercise. Do this in your mind.
Okay.
So I said to the kids, write down 3 you are statements of negative self-talk that you feel like you might regularly have with yourself. So it'd be something like, you are stupid, or you are fat, or you are terrible at math, or you are so dumb, that kind of stuff, right? So just as you're listening to this, just imagine things that you think in your mind. What are some things I sometimes say to myself? I'm like, gosh darn, I probably shouldn't say that, but I sometimes do say these things. And you can do it kind of as in a you are format. And then the second thing I asked them to do is to write down 3 I am statements that would combat. It's almost like write down the truth now. Like, not you are dumb. It's like, you are a hard worker. Or you are lazy. It's like, no, you have what it takes. That kind of thing. So in other words, you would say it this way: I am a hard worker. I am capable, that kind of stuff. So you write down some I am statements.
Michael Hyatt teaches that there's a liberating truth behind every lie that we believe.
Yeah, beautifully said, by the way. Yeah. That's really well said. So the concept is that you start to update this identity. And what's so interesting is we would oftentimes not ever say any of those you are statements to anyone else, but yet here we are saying them to ourselves, because
we're our own worst critic.
Exactly. Yeah. We're like the one that beats ourselves up the worst,
Right.
So you start to anchor down into like, I am a hard worker. I am capable. I am strong. I am able to figure this thing out. And you start to build you start creating a future with your future, not your past. And one of the things I teach in the book is to create a 3D vision, to where you start literally creating and designing a life. Most people, they react to all the distractions of life versus intentionally creating a life. And so, the life ends and they're just kind of like, I just sort of like ended up where I ended up, versus literally intentionally creating and designing your life.
Yeah. So what I love about this, we're so on the same page. So before COVID, before the world stopped, I actually got to go into prisons and teach personal and professional development to men and women. And though it was a short season of being able to do that, one of the most impactful things of my life, because you just get to experience life with these people at a whole different level. But that was one of the biggest things, was what lies are you believing about yourself? And what is the truth? You may not be able to see it now, but let's envision it I wish I would have had your book when we were walking through this, but there's nothing more powerful than just walking in there and seeing these grown men with their head held low. Yep. Like, this is where I belong. I've done this to myself. I'm never going to get out of this, to I can do something different. I don't have to be a victim of my circumstances. I really can do something different. And sometimes we just need people to write a book or to say, you can do this. You're more than your past. And I don't think we truly grasp the power of our words in that, just encouraging people and saying, you can do something different.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
And my dad is a great example of that. He was an addict all of my life. He was in and out of my life. And at 48, he died of an accidental overdose. And so oftentimes I take his prison number into prisons and say, this is what happened to him, but you don't have to be this. You don't have to do this. And it's powerful when they realize there's hope.
Yeah. So here's one thing I'd encourage you guys to be thinking about. Once you get intentional, I wrote a chapter in my book called Live an Intentional Life. So it's just 4 words that changed my life. And you ask yourself, how intentional am I being with my health right now? Like, how intentional am I being with my marriage right now? Or how intentional am I being with my kids right now? How intentional am I being in my career? How intentional am I being in my spiritual life, like my faith journey? Like how intentional am I being?
Mm-hmm.
But once you create some intentionality and some focus and some vision, then you've got to get into like creating new habits, because it's like I said, you're not what you did, but you are what you repeatedly do. So Aristotle was the famous one that says excellence is not an act, it's a habit. Therefore, you are what you repeatedly do. And so you want to, that's where I feel like the book for me was so impactful. It's like, it's just learning to, it's like learning to, that you need to update your identity, learning like, okay, here's how I update to who I'm born to be. But then what do I do today? Like, how do I be that person today?
Yes.
And step into the person I was born to be. So check this out, Sunday. I'll share this with you. There's a young boy out of Wichita, Kansas, flunking out of high school, hanging out with the wrong kids, life going the wrong direction, raised by a single mom. In May of his junior year, he tells his mom that he is going to go take the SAT test. Now, the SAT test, if you guys remember, it has 800 points that you can get for math, 800 for reading and comprehension. There's 2 sections, so it's 1,600 points total. Kid goes in, even though he's flunking out of school and so on, goes in there, takes the test, and he gets the results back, and he scores a 1480. So a 1480 means this kid's a genius.
Mm-hmm.
He's thinking to himself, what the heck? So he takes the results back to his mom, and his mom looks at it, and she says what all of our moms would have said to us. She goes, baby, did you cheat? He goes, Mom, I did not cheat. This is real. Like, no kidding. So she realizes, man, if my son's actually pretty smart, you know? Well, he says to himself, if I'm so smart, I might as well go to class. When he goes to class, he changes his behavior and stops hanging out with the kids he shouldn't be hanging out with, right? Well, his teacher said, we had it wrong on you. You're a good kid. Graduates from high school, graduates from junior college, graduates from Wichita State, graduates from the Ivy Leagues. Ultimately becomes an entrepreneur in the magazine industry, becomes a multi-millionaire. And he said, people have been telling me my whole life that your life changed when you got that 1480 test score. Well, that's not the end of the story. 13 years later, he gets a letter in the mail from Princeton, New Jersey. And it says, we periodically review the test-taking policies and test-taking procedures of the people that take our test. The year that you took it, you were one of 13 students that was accidentally sent the wrong test score. You didn't score a 1480. You scored a 740.
Oh.
And so he said, when people say to me, your whole life changed when you got the 1480 test score, he says, no, my whole life changed when I started acting like a 1480. My friends, when you start acting like you're the one and you start stepping into who you really are, your whole life changes.
Yes. Oh, man. I think we could probably end right there. That's so good. So in the book you mentioned, I want to talk about failure just again for just a second. You mentioned that failure is part of the process to succeed. So how do you learn to embrace that failure? And what advice would you give us for overcoming those setbacks?
Yeah, so a couple kind of thoughts on this. First of all, we have a programming that failing is bad. Like, in other words, failing is pain. Failing equals pain. And you want to see if you could update this belief system to say that failure is fertilizer. So failure is not, it's a person, not an event, right? So you're not a failure. You just happen to fail at that thing, that try, that event. And then the second thing is that failure is not final. You know, just because you fail doesn't mean it's over. Failure is not final, it's fertilizer, and your success will grow in the fertilizer of failure, because what happens is as long as you're learning, like you're like saying, okay, why did that not work? Like, what can I learn from this? John Maxwell wrote a book. John did the foreword for my book. He wrote a book called, he said, Win or Learn. And he's right. You either win as an entrepreneur, or you win in your life, or...
Hey, picture yourself standing behind the counter at the shoe store. A customer walks in and wants to buy the best pair of shoes you have. They want a quality product, but also want to save money. There's another shoe store across the street having a huge sale, but the customer came to you first. You only have a few minutes to explain why the customer should buy your shoes versus the shoes across the street. So you help the customer try the shoes on, all the while explaining the benefits of the cushioning, the upgraded technology, the comfort, and not to mention how fantastic they look. Think of your elevator pitch the same way when you're in a job interview with a potential employer. Your elevator pitch is a brief explanation describing the benefits of buying a product, except you are that product. An elevator pitch is one of the most important tools you have when applying for a job. When you position yourself with confidence and you clearly summarize your experience, your skills, your desirable characteristics, the employer is ready to listen. So, put in a nutshell, you're going to impress the employer. We want to help you do that. That's why we created How to Create the Perfect Elevator Pitch, a free guide with 4 proven simple steps that will help you wow your next employer. You can download it for free today, cwdregion.com/elevator pitch. That's cwdregion.com/elevator pitch. And I will share the link in the show notes for you. All right, now back to the show.
If you fail, as long as you learn, you win. So you either win or you learn. If you learn, then you win. And so the goal is to constantly be saying, okay, that didn't work, next thing. That didn't work,
Right.
next thing. You've heard the famous Edison quote, which is, it's kind of a cliche quote now, even though it was real life. It was real life.
Mm-hmm.
When he was inventing the light bulb, he tried and failed 1,000 times, literally. And someone goes, you're a failure. You've tried 1,000 times and you failed. And he said, no. I've just figured out 1,000 ways not to do it.
Not to do it. Yeah. That didn't work. Yeah.
Right? And you keep, kind of getting over you keep moving to that next thing of here's how I adapt and I adjust and I persist until I succeed. So failure is not final, it's fertilizer, my friends. You will never accomplish anything significant. This is just how it is without some of those that's not how you do it. Okay, that's not how you do it. So you're adjusting and you're adapting and you're in essence failing. But again, as long as you're learning and you keep going, you really don't ever lose. You just win or you learn, and if you're learning, then you're winning. Right. So you just keep moving forward. And as I look back at my career, it's so interesting. People say to me that sometimes they're like, man, how did you do this? And if I had to simplify it, I would use the word until. And Og Mandino wrote a famous scroll that says, I will persist until I succeed. My friends, most people persist until it's hard. They persist until the client quits. They persist until the customer says no. Not you. You persist, not you and I. We persist until we succeed.
That's right.
And so even though it's hot, we still persist. Even though we get knocked down, we still persist. We persist for how long? Well, until we succeed,
That's right.
And Les Brown did he has a famous saying when he's playing a game with his son, and he keeps beating his son in this card game. And his son's like, Dad, play again. He beats him again. Dad, play again. Beats him again. He goes, and then Dad, play again. He goes, son, I'm tired. I'm going to bed. It's on a Sunday night. And the son said, Dad, it's not over until I win. And you want to adapt some of that, adopt this idea of it's not over until I win. It's not over until I succeed. I'm going to figure this thing out, because the failure, I will learn from this to learn what not to do, so I can, achieve my dreams, achieve my goals, and go make this thing happen.
Yeah. I think that's so powerful, because the world teaches us, what you just said about failure, but also I hate that phrase, progress makes perfect. I don't know where it came from, but I'm like, no, it doesn't. Progress makes practice makes perfect. Geez, I got messed up on my words, but practice makes progress. Like, we have to keep doing it. And so I think we do. We get these ideas in our heads and we allow people to tell us this is how that process works. And because it's been ingrained in us since we've been kids, we don't stop to ask that question. Is that really the way it is? Or can I dig into this a little deeper?
Yeah.
It's good stuff. Okay. So, when we're walking through those failures and we're getting to that success and we're on this path, it's, we get tired. Sometimes we need that motivation to keep going. So what advice do you have when we're facing those challenges, when we're struggling to stay motivated on that journey to success?
Yeah, so I teach a simple formula. So imagine if you were writing notes on a piece of paper, you would go from left to right on your paper. So if you're doing this in your mind, if you're driving or at the gym, just go from left to right in your mind. It's what I call how, what, why. And the first question is this question of how do I stay motivated? How do I just stay kind of fired up for what I'm doing? And let me start by saying this. I think we're asking the wrong question. I think the how question is the wrong question. And what I mean by the wrong question is your brain cannot not answer a question. So when you upgrade the quality of your questions, you'll upgrade the quality of your life. The questions matter, right? So I think the how do I stay motivated is the wrong question. So what we want to do is we want to move to the middle of your page, right? Or draw an arrow to the middle, which is the what. You go from how to what. The what is, what are you looking to accomplish? What are some of the dreams? What are some of the goals? Like sometimes you just need to remember, like, what am I doing this for? Man, I'm doing it. I'll tell you what I'm doing it for. I'm doing it for my baby. I'm doing it for my kids. I'm doing it for my spouse. I'm doing it for my future. I'm doing it for, what I'm doing this for is for the freedom. You get into like, what am I looking to accomplish? What is the dream? What is the goal? The fastest way to motivate people is to find out what already motivates them and help them to get it. So you say, what does already motivate me? Like what are things that like would get me excited or get me passionate? Like what is the end destination that I'm trying to get to? And then you go from what to the right side of your page, right? If you're taking notes, you go from how to what to why. And on the why, we really want to see if we can dig into why is this important to you? So I'll give you an example. It's what I call 7 levels of why. So again, if I was on a whiteboard, I'd start on the left side of the page and go right. And I'd say how, what, why. And then I would do an arrow going down and we'd go 7 levels down. And here's the question. You say, I want to build a successful business, right? Let's say that's your answer. That's what I'm looking to do, build $1 million business. Okay, cool. The next question is, why is that important to you? And that's now you've gone down 1 level of why. And then they say, well, because it would make me successful. Cool. What's the next question? Why is that important to you? You start to go down. Why is that important to you? Why is that? So whatever the answer is, you just go a little deeper. Whatever the answer is, go a little deeper. You'll notice when you do this with yourself, and you'll notice when you do this with others, at about 4 to 5 to 6 times levels deep, you'll go from their head to their heart. They'll go from like, I want to build a business to make money and to be a millionaire, whatever, into like, because I want to be the mom my mom never was for me because she worked 3 jobs and wasn't able to do it. You get into kind of like the soul, the reason. Now, once we get into that becomes the fuel. The real reason I'm doing this, the real reason I'm waking up early, the real reason I'm staying up late, the real reason I'm, buying a book and reading a book and going to an event and listening to a podcast and staying positive is because I'm going to be the one that changes the cycle for my family. I'm going to be the one that shows my kids, what a real mother, a real father, whatever the case might be for you, right? That's the deeper stuff. The why is more important than the how. In other words, when your why is clear, you can figure out the how. And then, then you get into the steps. By the way, one last quick step on how do you do it? Here's another great question. I would encourage you to ask yourself. The question is, because a lot of times people are like, okay, all right, I figured out what I want to accomplish. I figured out why I want to accomplish, but they're like, now I'm still stuck. I don't know how to do it. Well, listen, we want to tap into the resourceful part of your brain. So how do we do that? Here's a great question. If I had to do it, what would I do? Now, the reason the word if is so powerful is because it lets you off the hook. You're not committed at this point. You're just saying, listen, I'm not saying I'm going to do it, but if I were to, this is what I would need to do. The second thing that is so powerful is you're not using the word had is so powerful. If I had to do it, what would I do? Why is that so important? Because it raises necessity. So Brendon Burchard wrote a book called High Performance Habits, and he said that one of the characteristics of high performers is they raise necessity. Raise necessity, think of it this way. Let's say that you before the month ends, you need to sell 5 more, get 5 more sales. Okay, cool. If the company said to you, if you get 5 more sales, we'll pay you $50 million. Would you go figure out a way? It would raise the necessity of making it happen. Would you go figure out a way to do it? Yeah, of course you would. Right?
Yeah.
If the company says to you, hey, look, we got bad news. The government just called and they said, if you don't get 5 sales, they're going to take your house and you and your kids will be homeless. You're like, oh crap. That's a terrible program. I'm going to go get 5 sales. That's kind of a negative example where the 50 million is a positive example. Here's the point though, is it raises necessity. You're just like, I have to make this happen. It goes from I hope to, I want to, I would like to, that'd be fun to like, I have to do this. So if you had to do it, what would you do? So here's the exercise. Grab a paper, grab a pen and simply just say, if I had to do it, what would I do? And just start, just do a brain dump. It's an if question. You're not saying you're going to do it, but just brain dump. If I had to, I'd do this, I'd do this, I'd call so-and-so, I'd follow up with this person, I'd do a presentation, I would hit my social media accounts, I would call former customers, current customers, ask for referrals, if I had to do it, I would do, this is what I would do. Your brain can figure this stuff out.
Yeah.
If I had to do it, I'd go to ChatGPT. If I had to, I'd go to Google. If I had to, I'd call so-and-so that's already done it and ask them how they did it. Like, you start tapping into the resourceful part of your brain. And instead of just sitting there like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do, and I'm not even motivated in the first place. It's like, go from how to what do I want to accomplish, go from that to why, and then into like, if I had to get it done, what would I do? And boom, you're there.
I love that. That's so powerful. One of my favorite quotes is, you lose your way when you lose your why. And I hold on to that often.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, this has been so good. I could keep chatting forever, but I want to honor your time. And so, Justin, let us know where we can find you, where we can find your book, and anything else that you want to share with our listeners before we close out today.
Yeah, so you can go to iamjustinprince.com, and I'm across all social channels. I put a ton of free content to help you in kind of every area of your life. The book, wherever your favorite books are sold, whether it's on audio with Audible or whether it's Amazon or bookstores, whatever. But it's a book that's going to change your life, my friends. It's a book that's going to have huge impact in who you are and really what's possible for you in your life. And so I'd love to get have you get the book, but most importantly, I'd love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear how it, affects your life. So Sundi Jo, what an honor to be on with you, and thanks for having me.
All I can say is, wow. That was incredible. I told you we were going to have some fun. So many nuggets out of that interview. And I keep thinking about what he said. Failure is fertilizer. Hold on to that. Failure is fertilizer. And so we only fail when we stop trying. Like, that might be a cliche thing, but it's so true, isn't it? And so I just want to encourage you with that today. Keep moving forward. And another thing I want to encourage you with is find your why. But man, I'm going to go back and do that exercise that Justin recommended. I highly encourage you to do it too. What a great episode today. I know I've already said that, but I really, really, really thoroughly enjoyed it. And I hope that it was motivational and inspiring for you today to keep taking the next right steps toward your success. And if you need help in your job search, you're looking for training, you need resume assistance, you're looking for just a mentor, you need somebody to help you through your career goals, we would love to help you do all of that at our job centers. So you can find the closest job center to you today at cwdregion.com/job centers. And I will share the link in the show notes for you for that. And also, like I said earlier in the interview, I will share the link in the show notes for Justin's website and for his book, Be the One. So I highly encourage you to go out and buy that today. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, please share it with somebody else that you think would benefit from this episode. And don't forget to leave us a review and let us know what you thought of this episode. It really does mean a lot to us. That is it. Have a great week, my friend, and we will meet again in the next episode. Until then, remember this: there's always a brighter tomorrow if you're willing to find it. The Central Region Workforce Development Board Incorporated and COPIC are equal opportunity employers and programs. Auxiliary aids and services are available upon request to individuals with disabilities. Missouri Relay Services at 711.